Welcome to On the Bauble podcast episode 27. I'm your host, Tsubasa J. Ueda, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be talking about our Outsiders wish list. So that's going to be things that we want in Outsiders, but aren't either announced or we don't actually know what's going to be in Outsiders yet. So these are going to be things that we are hoping to get, essentially. And we're also going to be touching a little bit on Calling Auckland and its top 8. So before we go into that, how was your week, Yuki?
Yeah, my week's been pretty good. I took a little bit of a relaxing weekend. The only thing I really did was go out and go shopping. My friend is getting married, and his bride she has Indian heritage, so we're going to be doing an Indian themed wedding, and we were shopping for some clothing for a bunch of the people going to the wedding, and that was kind of cool. I've never done that before, so it was cool to go out to Surrey, which has a large Indian population, and like when I say Indian, I mean East Indian population, and they were it was just really cool, seeing all the different clothes and kind of learning a little bit about it and picking stuff out. So it was fun. How about you, Jay?
So this week I helped out my friend Greg on his channel. He has a YouTube channel called Greg Goes All In, and he was at about 49,000 subscribers last week, and he decided to do a subathon-esque thing where he basically didn't end his stream until he hit 50,000 subs. And that lasted about 5 days. So basically every day I was going to his house and help make a little bit of content / live stream. And during that, on stream I said, oh, if you hit this number of subscribers within a specific time frame, I'll shave my head.
Ooh. Did they end up making the goal?
They ended up getting 49,800 subs. It was by Thursday by 8 p.m. And at 7 o'clock, I checked in, and Greg was 80 away from that goal. And I was like, okay, no way he's getting 80 subs in, 45 minutes. No way. I check in about 10 minutes before the time, and he's actually hit this goal. And from what I've heard, what he did was he went to other streams, other popular poker streams, super chatted them $100 US each, and just to say, please come and sub to get this man bald.
I guess he really wanted to see you shave your head.
You know what? He deserved this, so I drove over to his place, got the hair shaved that night. It's all on stream. I guess if you want to watch it, it's there. It should be in his on his channel. It's yet again, it's Greg Goes All In. It's a good channel, honestly.
That sounds fun. Have you? I don't think I've ever seen you with shaved hair. You've always had sort of long hair or more medium length hair. Have you ever shaved your head before?
Yeah, I had my hair shaved once before. It was 4 years ago. Yeah, it was about 4 years ago last time I got my hair shaved. That was when I had long enough hair to donate the hair, so I ended up just doing that.
I see. Cool. Yeah, it's always nice to be able to donate for a cause like that. So
okay, let's move on and let's talk about the Calling Auckland. So we have a little bit of information about it. There's no article on FabTCG yet on the Calling Auckland. We are recording on the Monday right after the Calling. But we do know the top 8, which was 2 Dash, 4 Oldham, 1 Bravo, and 1 Lexi, with a Lexi Dash finals.
Yeah, so really cool to see some different heroes represented in the finals. I feel like going in, Oldham and Icelander, even after the bans, proved themselves to be very strong contenders in Indianapolis. And while Oldham was still present, notably no Icelander, and then also no Oldham when we got to the finals. And honestly, even come semis, 3 of the Oldhams were eliminated, and there was just 1 Oldham, 2 Lexi. Sorry, 1 Oldham, 2 Dash, and a Lexi in the semis. So yeah, Oldham just falling off pretty hard in top 8.
Yeah, Dash doing very well.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because it's a deck that we had talked about. I remember we were both pretty high on Dash when we did our first impression on the ban announcement, and then it sort of just didn't do anything. And then now in Calling Auckland, seems like maybe Dash is having our time to shine. So that's really interesting to see.
Yeah, that's very good for my collection.
I'm curious to see, or I'm curious to like. I kind of wonder. New Zealand often kind of has like a little bit more of a defensive metagame, and my impression, just from kind of watching some of the feature games and from what I heard, I think there was like quite a bit of like defensive dash lists with lots of D reacts and life gain and generics. Like I think I saw a dash on stream at some point that was like it was like fairly it might have been like a day two match or something that was running like titanium bauble in his deck because I think he wanted to turn on his like nourishing emptinesses anyways.
Wow.
Yeah, he went real deep there.
Dude, Titanium Bauble. Man, Titanium Bauble with Nourishing Emptiness. Wow, that's I didn't even think of that. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so I'm not sure like how much he got to pull it off, but I'm assuming that's what it was for because I believe there was nourishing emptiness in that deck list.
And what about Lexi? Your Lexi main? Any comments on that deck?
Yeah, it's really cool to see someone doing well with it. I know a few people have been kind of putting up results, and I know that Chris Ioli also has been playing a whole bunch of Lexi recently. If you don't know who Chris is, he was the world's finalist, world's runner up, so very accomplished player. So yeah, I think she might just be like a little bit better than I give her credit for. And if the metagame was more defensive, which it seemed like it probably was, I think that's actually a pretty good spot for Lexi because even though she can be fatigued, I think that really strong Lexi pilots are going to be able to just go over the top most of the time because you're pretty good at just presenting consistent damage. Like you can do 2 arrows for 10 that sort of demand a lot of blocks. It's kind of hard to just like sit there and gain life. And then you can just set up some giant 30-40 damage Rain Razor's turn and sort of just push over and maybe leak a bit of damage with like Lightning Press, or you can usually find a way to get it done. So I think that the more proactive disruption based hold'ems were a lot more problematic than the more defensive ones. And I wonder if maybe that's part of why Lexi did well. I'm not sure exactly what he played against in the tournament.
Do you want to move on to our Outsiders wish list?
Oh, before we do that, we have a few brand new spoilers to look at that were dropped, I guess, over the weekend, and they're all ninja cards. So why don't we touch on those?
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's start with Dishonor. I'll just read out the card for you guys. So this is a blue pitch 0 cost, and it's a 2 power attack that's a ninja action attack card with 3 blocks. And this card reads combo. If Bonds of Ancestry was the last attack this combat chain, this has +2 power. When this hits a hero, if you control Surging Strike, Descendant Gust Wave, and Bonds of Ancestry, that hero loses all abilities for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so this is an on hit like we've never seen before. Usually the on hits are sort of like a one-time effect, like Command and Conquer destroys an arsenal, Snatch draws a card, or sometimes it will be for a turn, like Remorseless makes them lose a life every time they play an action for that turn, or Spinal Crush turns off Go again for a turn, but we've never seen something that persists throughout the whole game. And it's going to depend on the matchup, but losing your hero text for a lot of heroes is a pretty big deal, and in some cases can be almost game losing. Like Levia comes to mind. If you get hit by this, you just can't turn off Blood Debt, and if you have a bunch of Blood Debt, you're just going to lose.
Oh, even Lexi, like Lexi losing her ability to flip over cards, that's gonna be makes it very hard to load arrows, right? To like if you are end step Arsenal a card, and if you can't flip it over, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, that's true. I had sort of just like dismissed it and be like, oh, Lexi doesn't need to flip that badly. But then you're right. I always liked playing Sleep Dart into Lexi. So I guess that makes a lot of sense that it's hard to arsenal an arrow, then flip it up and use New Horizon. So yeah, it's actually pretty good against Lexi too.
Yeah, there's some heroes like Dash, which doesn't really have a hero ability after it's used, and this card does actually nothing against that deck.
Yeah, but that being said, it's still a blue 3 block that attacks for 2, and I mean, hey, if if you're getting this off of Bonds of Ancestry, off of the tutor effect from Bonds of Ancestry, and you're just coming in for 4 power with your blue card, that is totally fine. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good. So there's one card on here that we don't actually know. It's called Descendant Gust Wave. That card hasn't been spoiled for us yet. We will talk about Dishonor again once Descendant Us Wave does come out. But this card's pretty sick because Bonds of Ancestry is like a 0 for 8 with this card still. Like, man, Bonds of Ancestry is the most messed up card that I've seen printed in a while.
Yeah, it's just really, really far above rate. I wonder if there's a cycle of it or only the reds, because honestly, the yellows are totally playable too. And even the blues, 0 for 6. And the other thing I want to mention too is like if you have blue Bonds of Ancestry and you have like Dishonor, I think that Mask of the Pouncing Lynx becomes a real potential option for Katsu. Like I don't think you'll get rid of momentum. I think you'll still want it for certain matchups, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if, if you can just like fix your Dishonor combo line in a relevant matchup using Pouncing Lynx if that's like pretty threatening.
Wow, that's I haven't even thought about that, but let's talk about the other cards. Uh let's go with the generic attacks first. Or sorry, the ninja attacks first. The first card will be like water. So the one that got spoiled is a red line 0 cost, and it attacks for 3 and blocks for 2. This card reads, when this hits, you may pay 1. If you do, choose Head Jab, Surgeon Strike, or Twin Twisters. This gains the chosen name, and has go again.
Yeah, so this is just a head jab, which we've seen can be a constructed level card. I think it becoming these things is pretty strong, um, especially because we have like the new combo line that is hung off of Surging Strike. So I suspect that in constructed play, um, yeah, you can just play this and make it into a Surging Strike. And I mean, like the blue doesn't block for 2, and it's not a combo. It only blocks for 2, and it's not a combo card. But I mean, hey, your blue like 1 cost attack, and then if hits, it turns on your combo line. Seems okay.
Honestly, I don't know how much you want to use this ability in constructed, but seems pretty good for limited.
Yeah, definitely seems really strong and limited. I think it will let Benji kind of utilize combo lines more easily because Benji doesn't have the tutor effect to search for whatever he needs.
And the next card I want to talk about will be Head Leads the Tail. This card is a red line as well, cost 1. It is a mythic, so I'm assuming we don't have the yellow or blue. But this one attacks for 3, blocks for 2. And it reads, when this attacks, name another card. Attack action cards of the same name have +1 power this combat chain. And this has go again. So, first card that comes into my mind is Crouching Tiger.
Yeah, this feels like a plant for the Crouching Tiger line. That deck hasn't been good enough. I think that this is a pretty powerful card for that deck. It's a starter that also enables your Crouching Tigers and is just like a fine card on its own, which is like maybe the biggest knock I have against that archetype is that just so many of your cards don't do anything. Like you put 3 Crouching Tigers that do is it Predatory Strike? You put 3 Crouching Tigers into your hand and they just don't do anything unless you have another card to enable them. So I think this helps, but I'm not sold that this makes that archetype good.
Man, I wish it gave +2.
Oh, if it gave +2, that'd be real strong. You could use this with something like Double Strike as well, but I don't think you're accomplishing all that much because then you've like spent a pitch and 2 cards for 7, and like maybe you filled in with your Kadachis for 9, and you've done some like awkward breakpoints. But I don't know. Seems fine.
Well, if you have 3 double strikes with Head Leads the Tail, use Tunic, Head Leads the Tail, and then go 6 double strikes in a row. That's reasonable.
It's fair. That is
Actually, it's
true.
not even that good, is it?
It's
3,
okay.
4, 4, 4.
Yeah, it just makes your double strikes into 4 for zeros. That they do work very well with Mask of Momentum, so that's pretty strong. But yeah.
Okay, but it sounded cooler in my head, and when I thought about it, it's actually not that much better. So never mind.
Yeah, I think this card's okay, but I don't know. Maybe like 100 Wins also wants to play a lot of the same card. I don't think like any of these are. It feels like the best, the strongest combo cards that we've seen, which is Surging Strike, Whelming Gust Wave, and maybe like the leg tap line. Just don't really care about this, so I don't really expect it to be super good. But who knows? Maybe there's something new in this set that we don't know about.
And the last card that's been spoiled this week is a card called Mask of Many Faces. This is a ninja equipment headpiece, and it's gonna. Oh, and it blocks for one. I didn't even notice this card blocks for one with Blade Break. And this card reads: Instant, pay a resource, destroy Mask of Many Faces. Name a card. The next attack action you play this turn gains that name.
I'll start by saying this card is just sweet. I kind of love this card. I like the design space of like it just feels very thematic, and I like the design space of like changing the name of the card so that you can kind of cheat your combo cards. I think it's worth noting that it gains that name, which I think means it has both names.
Yeah, it will have both names, yes.
So like your bonds events, you could like make your descendant gust wave called Bonds of Ancestry, and then you would turn on Dishonor with one fewer card, for example. I don't know that this is like a constructor level power level card, but that's like the kind of stuff that you can do with it. You can also make your Surging Strike name Descendant Gust Wave and then go straight into
No,
Bonds of
no, no, no.
Ancestry.
I don't think this would work with Dishonor
Oh, maybe not.
because you need to control a Surging Strike, Descendant Gust Wave, and Bonds of Ancestry. I don't know if that looks for three separate cards.
Yeah, I guess we'll need some rules text, but it can definitely do some cool stuff. It works with Bonds of Ancestry for sure because it just looks for Gust Wave in the name. So
Yeah.
seems like a really sweet limited card though.
Yeah, no, this card seems perfect for Benji. Benji was gonna have some issues making combo lines, and same with the Be Like Water, the attack action we talked about just earlier. It helps put together combo lines without having to have the hero ability to do so.
Yeah, I have a dream that I want to live with this card in limited, but it's going to be pretty hard. I want to go Surging Strike into Descendant Gust Wave, assuming that is a zero cost. And then you can activate Mask, name Descendant Gust Wave, play a Bonds of Ancestry, tutor for another Bonds of Ancestry, play that Bonds of Ancestry, then tutor for something. The problem is that you need 3 Bonds of Ancestry in your deck, and like one of them to be in your hand and one in your graveyard. So that's why I say like it's a dream that I hope I can live. But that line is really powerful if you can do it.
Dude, that's a triple rare line. Can we do this
Yeah,
in sealed?
I mean maybe like it might happen. You could draft like a blue one or something. Like I don't know if there's a cycle. I don't know.
Man, wow, that sounded amazing.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some sweet stuff that you can do with this card, honestly. So, honestly, even just Surging Strike, naming Gust Wave, and then you go right into Bonds of Ancestry and, I don't know, get like a 4 for 0 off of it or something. That's like, I don't know what Gust Wave does, but you're probably doing something like 5, 4, 4, and 4. No, sorry, you don't get the middle attack. So it's like 5, 4, 4 off of 3 cards. Pretty good. 13 damage off of 3 cards. Very strong.
Yeah, very, very strong. Let's move on to our main topic, which is our Outsiders wish list. Right before we talk about that, do you want to just do a quick breakdown of what we currently know?
Yeah, so we know that this is a 6-hero set. There's 2 of each class. So there's Katsu and Benji as the ninjas returning. We don't know if Benji is going to get an adult hero or not. There's Azalea returning, and then we have Riptide as the other ranger. That's a new hero. For assassins, we have Uzuri as a new hero and Arachne as an adult returning, and then we have a new young Arachne that seems to be for the limited format, and we don't know what the young Arachne's hero ability is going to be. We also know that young Arachne has a new weapon called an Orbitoclast or something.
I don't know the name of the weapon, but yeah, that is right. And young Arachne has 19 health. So does Riptide and Benji, right? Or no, Riptide has 20.
No, Riptide has 19. Does
Benji has
Benji have
18.
19 or 18? 18, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see like what Arachne and Riptide are doing that warrants the lower life total.
I'm hoping it's going to be something broken.
Yeah, it'll be very, very curious to see. I guess beyond that, we know that there are both generic cards as well as hybrid class cards. So hybrid class cards would be, we've seen like Codex of Frailty, which is a ninja and ranger action. So you can play it in ninja or ranger. And we have
Assassin.
seen, sorry, yes, ninja, assassin and ranger. Thank you.
Yeah, Assassin Ranger, yes.
And we've also seen Death Touch, which is, again, Assassin Ranger card. And so we know that these exist not only at Majestic, but also at Common, which I think is pretty cool.
I think the last little information that's important is that we know it's 14 card boosters. So that's just for the limited portion for the draft. It's going to be the same as Uprising. It's going to be we're going to be a little bit short on cards again.
Yeah. And I guess it will just depend we'll have to see how the format, how the draft environment kind of shakes out. And if you end up feeling as tight on cards, I think a lot of it comes down to like how flexible the cards are.
Yeah, that's fair. Which one do you want to talk about first, limited or constructed?
Why don't we start with limited?
Okay, sounds great.
Maybe we can just
One
alternate here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one that I have is I just want more ability to stay open in this format. I was hoping for 15 card boosters. We're not getting that. I feel like the hybrid cards at common in every pack are a good first step, as well as generics. I'm kind of hoping that there's like strong generics and the hybrid cards are like pretty good, and maybe there's a few of them in every pack so that you kind of get kind of almost like Tails, where you can just be drafting like multiple decks at the same time and lock in a little bit later. I think that would make the format feel a lot better. I'd also kind of like if they had, like in Arcane Rising, it felt like a lot of the cards kind of fit in two decks, like Back Alley Breakline went in Azalea, and it also went in Dash because they could like flip it off the top and get the action point. And then a lot of the pumps were good in like Viscerai and Azalea because they cared about the non-attacks. So I kind of hope that we have that going on, where like the cards feel good and like premium cards in multiple heroes.
I'm assuming that that's where the hybrid card is going to come in place, where that's just going to clearly that one's going to clearly tell you which two, I guess technically 4 heroes it can go into.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, we could maybe see a similar thing happen with the generics as well, where they kind of slot into multiple decks.
Yeah, that would be nice. So for one of my points, or 2 of the points that I had, it gets covered here, what you just said. I said less class cards and more generics, basically meaning the same thing as you. I want more flexibility in the draft. And I also just briefly mentioned about I want to go back to 15 cards or even 16 cards, honestly. But my first new point is I want Flagstone.
But before you carry on, I actually have one thing to ask you. So we're both kind of wanting to have a little bit more flexibility and more time to stay open. What do you think is like a good... So I guess Uprising was sort of like maybe around pick 4, pick 5 at the latest. You kind of were decided on your deck. What do you think is kind of like a ideal, regardless of like what's possible, like what would be an ideal point for you to be able to like stay open until pick? Like what pick do you think would be a good goal?
Ideally, I want to be able to stay open until the first pick of pack 2. Like that would be beautiful, because then you can open up your second pack and then see the most powerful card in that pack, and you can even like either pivot into it or combine it with the current cards. Whereas like right now in Flesh and Blood, I think that would be the biggest knock against this game, is that whatever you open on your first pack and what gets past you in your first pack greatly determines what you can do for your next 2 packs.
I think I agree. I think the longer they can extend it, and like up to pack 2 is like probably a pretty ideal point. Although even if you could get around to the wheel and stay open until wheel, so pick 9, that would be a big deal, because then you would get a ton of information about what pack, like you could remember what cards get taken out of the pack, and then you get just so much more information if you get to see the wheel. So I guess I would also like to be able to stay open to pack 2, but I'd also be pretty happy if we could stay open until the wheel.
So pick 9.
Yeah, pick 9.
Yeah, honestly, realistically, I think pick 9 would probably be pretty good for Flesh and Blood. WTR and ARC, you actually can wait until pick 9.
I feel like even Tails, to some degree, like you're probably not truly open, but you can probably sometimes decide between 2 heroes around there, or maybe just slightly before there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think around pick 9 is around is I guess yeah, you are right. You have two heroes. You have to lock into two heroes, and then around end of pack 1 you have to be like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm in Oldham or I'm pretty sure I'm in Briar. But you can still pivot in pack 2 if you open like a busted card.
Yeah, and especially if you have a lot of those element cards. So I'm really kind of hoping that those hybrid cards end up playing out kind of similarly, and I think they will, so long as they are a good cards and b there's like a similar number of them as there were element cards. Like if there's like one of them per pack, it's not going to do like it will help, but it won't be that big. But if there's like three or four of them per pack, I think it's going to really make the draft feel a lot more flexible.
Yeah, yeah. Am I good to move on?
Mm-hmm.
So my first point would be I want flagstone cards at rare. What I mean by flagstone cards, this is like a more of a magic term. They indicate or they're like clearly powerful cards for specific color pairs. So in this case, it'll be for specific heroes. I want a card that just reads like this card is a Benji card, not a Katsu card. That does very powerful things for Benji or vice versa. I want like a card that's like specifically made for Katsu that are gonna be very powerful in Katsu. At the rare slots, so then we can so like basically so that card will wheel around and you have powerful picks later. How do I describe it? Like I just wanna have some good payoffs, even if let's say like Young Arachne is like quote unquote the worst hero. But then if you get, let's say, like three Young Arachne specific rares, the deck becomes very good. Something like that. So like I just like the sense of flagstones in the sense of like it really gets you help get you either on the rails of that deck or get into that deck if you notice that this card's much more open. We haven't had anything like that in Uprising. It was not that prevalent in I don't think in any of the formats actually. We had
Yeah.
like V of the Vanguard and Monarch. Like, that was like the only card that I can think of, or like Seeds of Agony in Monarch as well.
Like Soul Reaping comes to mind for Chain as a
Oh
super
yeah,
powerful
Soul
card.
Reaping. That's an even better card. Yes.
Yeah. And I think they could be these legendary specializations, but I think that they could also just honestly be like regular specializations that you can fit multiple in your deck. One of the things that was, I think I agree with you on this one. And one of the things that feels really nice about having these kind of like flagstone cards is that like sometimes if you're, I don't know, let's say you start out drafting Uzuri and then you're like, okay, I can't draft this, like it's contested. But I noticed that I'm getting like some cards for Young Arachne and like maybe it's not that powerful, but it seems like it's open. Sometimes if you can correctly identify that that hero is open and no one else is drafting it, you can just get like super late very powerful cards because they only go in that one deck, and it sort of like rewards you for reading the draft and navigating and like finding the open lane, which I think we've seen that Flesh and Blood really not that you can't stay open in Flesh and Blood at all, but there's a lot of players who have done very, very well for themselves just forcing a single hero regardless of what everyone else at the table is doing. And I think that it's nice to give some incentive to be a little more flexible too.
Yeah, one example comes to mind. I had one of my friends, Anthony. I taught him how to play Flesh and Blood, and he only played Tales of Arya draft. And on his first draft, I just told him, if you want to win this draft, it's very easy. You go first pick blue line, 3 block that you can play in Guardian. And then he just had like 29 blue block, sorry, a 3 block blue cards. And I think he went 2-1, just blocking and swinging hammer every turn.
Yeah.
So just like, if you force, it's powerful. Like it can definitely beat people. It's just very hard to go 3-0 forcing.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you get lucky. But yeah, I think that those kind of like very powerful cards that fit in exactly one deck would be really cool, especially in a set like this where there's at least six decks, right? Like there's six different heroes, and then maybe going into my next point, I hope that there's sort of like build arounds or archetypes within those heroes, so that like I think it'd be really amazing if we kind of saw this in WTR that you could build like a defensive Katsu, you could build a more aggressive Katsu, you could build a Katsu built around leg tap or around whelming gust wave, and they all kind of felt different. And I think that like I realize it's hard because we also have 6 classes, but if they somehow manage to fit in like even 2 archetypes for some of the heroes, I think that this format could be incredible because there could just be like a way bigger variety of decks in this format than we've ever seen in Flesh and Blood. And I think that just helps make it just gives you like more things to explore in the draft format and gives more longevity compared to like Uprising, whereas like there's 3 decks. There's Dromai, there's Icelander, and there's Fi. And you either have the good version of that deck, or you have the medium one, or you have the bad one, but they all want the same cards.
I guess Dromai had like 2 flavors to Dromai in Uprising.
Yeah, I guess so.
You had like a very defensive Dromai deck, or it had the more aggressive ones. It was just like because Dromai had a lot of 3 blocks, like a lot of her cards were just 3 blocks naturally. You got to play a little bit more defensively if you wanted to.
I think maybe just like for me at least, Dromai felt a little bit less like this because Dromai just has so many bad cards that like often it's just like the Dromai deck that you wind up with. Whereas in WTR, I feel like you could actively seek out like Katsu control versus like aggressive Katsu versus like I don't know, like surging or leg tap. Like you could like actively make decisions to go towards a certain one of those, and that was kind of missing in Uprising. Like even though like I guess there is variety in Dromai, it still felt like really on rails.
Yeah, you weren't really picking to get to that deck. It was more of like I'm forced into this version of the deck.
Yeah, exactly.
The next point that I have here is I just wrote more sideboard options. I want to be able to change my deck depending on who I'm playing against. So I want like generic sideboard cards, like either something that targets specifically the arsenal, or maybe like weapon attacks if you're up against ninja, or I don't exactly know what's in this format yet, but generic sideboard cards that are like specifically good against like a hero or a class and not so good against other heroes. Basically, I want it so that like at the beginning of each game, when during hero reveal, we get to like sculpt our deck a little bit more than what happened in Uprising, and honestly, even like ARC, like once you have your deck, you really didn't really change anything.
Yeah, like you might have like a few cards, like maybe you bring in like a few extra D reacts against Bravo or something,
Yeah,
but
or like I guess
like
in Uprising, you were like, oh, I take out my junky blue 2 block and put a yellow 3 block in.
yeah, yeah. Most of the time it wasn't super meaningful, or like you had like a couple, I don't know. I guess like Icelander could do this a little bit. Like you had like your Arctic incarcerations for 5, but that's
Yeah.
kind of like the best example I can think of.
Oh, blue strategic planning. Oh, that card was good against Fi.
Yeah, and I think in order for that to happen, we really need to see like these flexible cards, so that you have like a deeper card pool. Because a lot of times in Flesh and Blood, you're just like scrapping to be like, "Ooh, do I have to play the crack bauble or like the yellow that's like basically a crack bauble that can block 2, or like or do I have 30 like playable cards that I'm like kind of okay with?" But you rarely have the space to also sideboard, so maybe that will be possible, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that just goes back to the original point you were talking about. If it was 15 cards, just makes it that much more easier to do so.
I will say that the ailments we have might give a little bit of that potentially. Like inertia attacking the arsenal seems relevant against Ranger for sure. I don't know about the new heroes. Also, what is it? Frailty. Frailty reduces damage of attacks from arsenal. So I don't know if there's multiple heroes wanting to play from arsenal, but if there is, you could have like why am I just saying cards that affect Ranger? Anyways, maybe they affect other classes too. We'll see.
Well, Frailty also reads weapon attacks.
Oh, okay, so it'll probably be pretty good against like Ninja. Well, I guess it depends on their weapon if they're playing.
Yeah,
If they
I'm
have
gonna
like
assume
Kodachi
it's gonna be
basically.
Kodachi's. Do you have another point?
Yeah, I think that I can kind of segue nicely off of that actually. My next point, and actually my last point, was I'd really like to see 2 token weapons per class, and then you can pick between them. I think that would just add a ton of depth. And I actually got this idea from Oliver Fi's cube, the Midwinter cube that we talked about before with Ranger and was I think it was like Kano, Icelander, Azalea, and Lexi, and that you had multiple, so you could play like Death Dealer or you could play Shiver, um, and like Kano and Icelander could play Waning Moon or Crucible, and I felt like having that option just added, and like potentially even changing like depending on the matchup, just added so much depth to that draft experience. And I think that if you could just like have 2 token weapons per class, it would make a lot of sense and be really cool, even if they like kind of lean towards one hero. Like maybe there's spots where you want to use it in the other hero.
Yeah, that would actually be cool, but unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna be the case because I think Benji already has a weapon, right?
I mean,
It has a needle, right? Which is like you wouldn't play 2 copies of that card.
yeah, but they could give a new weapon, like,
Or I guess they could just give Katsu Kodachi Kodachi needle.
yeah, or they could just give Kodachi Kodachi like a ninja weapon we haven't seen before. We saw like Icelander already had her signature Kraken Aethervine, and then they're just like, here's Waning Moon, and everybody forgot about that weapon. So they, they
Oh,
they definitely could do it.
Icelander had a different weapon.
Yeah, it's the one. You know what? Waning Moon doesn't go away if Icelander Living Legends.
What?
Yeah, unless they've changed it. Her weapon was always the Kraken Aetherbind, the three cost deal one, and then you draw cards equal to the amount of damage the weapon dealt.
Wait, that card goes away when Icelander gets LL'd?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't even know. That's somewhat sad.
it kind of it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that all that's to say, we could see new token weapons that allow for this. I don't know.
I guess we do have Chain already with a good example. Like, I was playing Rosetta Thorn, but it actually took away what is that card called?
Nebula.
Not Nebula Blade. It's the other one.
Oh yeah, I know it wasn't Galaxy Block,
Galaxy Block. Yeah, you can't play Galaxy Block anymore.
and he's Nebula Blade then Rosetta Thorn. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
And I have one last point as well. It's very similar to yours. I want another Helios Miter equivalent. This doesn't have to be a headpiece. I just want a token equipment, like leg piece, arm piece, chest piece. I don't care. Just something we can play, has some kind of utility, and makes it a little bit easier on drafting equipments because drafting equipment is difficult and at basically every level. You go to your local armory and people overvalue equipment, or you go anywhere and you're like, people know equipment is good, so equipment goes away fast. So I just want to have the experience of being able to have like a full equipment suite or at least like 2 or 3 pieces, and having the token slot be an equipment. I felt like it was really good for Uprising, and I want that to continue.
Yeah, I don't have that on my list, but I agree that that would be awesome to see. And I think especially if it's like they could even have a pretty good equipment that's not super interesting. Like I'm thinking like back to WTR and like maybe it doesn't work in that set because like there's like a different, like every class has like a class equipment in a different slot. But if that wasn't the case, like and everybody just had like an iron rod chess piece or something, like that would honestly feel pretty good. Because like it's never like that exciting to draft the iron rod chess piece. Like you know that it's good and you know that you're gonna put it in your deck, but like you're always like, yeah, okay. Like maybe that's like not the best example because there's like other really good chess pieces in that set, but I think you get what I mean. Like if it was like Uprising and you could just draft like an iron, you like had an iron rod chess piece, it would just be like kind of nice.
Yeah, it really would be nice. And yeah, like it's like my wish list. Like, please just continue this for every set. Like, I don't really care how good or bad it is. Like, honestly, it could be as bad as like Ragamuffin's hat. Like,
Mhm.
if you had access to Ragamuffin's hat every time, maybe there'll be more spots where that card was good. Like people will be talking about it more instead of being like, just don't draft this card.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
That was my last point for limited.
Yeah, I've mentioned all my points as well. So it seems like we really just want like more build arounds, more way to stay open, more ways to be like flexible and have options in the draft, and just like have a format that's going to last a long time.
This is definitely a little bit what's it called, skewed towards like I want to have more options. I guess because we do draft a lot, but I want to think it's a good thing. When people start getting into limited, that's the thing that should give the most enjoyment is the amount of options you have during the draft portion.
Yeah, like maybe we're a little bit spoiled coming from Magic's draft. Like I know some people, Flesh and Blood's their first game that they've ever played that has a draft, and I'll just say that having that flexibility to like the most sweet Magic sets are where you always have like, I don't know, like you're just like, oh, I can combine these bad cards and then like make a cool deck around it that like I never thought about before, and maybe I wouldn't have explored that right away, and maybe it's not even the best thing to do, but like I managed to win a draft with something I never seen before on my like 50th draft, and that's just like, it's a really sweet feeling.
Yes, yes, definitely. Let's move on to constructed next. My main point, I talked about this last episode as well. Or I guess I didn't exactly say this point, but I want Azuri to have a defensive ability instead of an offensive ability. This is purely my own tastes. I want to play a defensive deck. I like the Arachne play style currently, where you're just like grinding out the whole deck. My only complaint about Arachne is her ability is not defensive nor offensive. So I want Azuri to be able to either gain life, put on an on hit to her attacks, that either forces blocking or makes it really annoying. So like they have to use a card in their hand to block for sure. I don't know, just like being able to move one of their arsenal cards into the exiled pile or something like that.
Yeah, fair. How would you feel about Arachne getting maybe like some defensive tools in this set?
You know what? I'm gonna just talk about my other point, which is very similar. I just want Assassin to have a block 4 at 0 cost or an easy condition.
Oh, so like a class specific sync below?
Yeah, class specific sync below. That maybe if it reads something like it blocks for 2 at red, or I guess it blocks for 3 at red, gets +1 if your opponent has 3 exiled cards.
Okay. That could be interesting.
You know, I would love that. Like, just man, that'd be amazing. Like, I don't want to play Oasis Respite. That card is, I think it's still gonna make the deck, but like that card costs 1. It's so hard to make resource in that deck.
Yeah, Oasis is I hate that card.
But it's so good against so many decks.
Yeah, sometimes you just need it, but I still hate that card. Unless you're like Oldhim. Like if you're like Oldhim and you can just crown Rampart, then
Use all
like
your resources. You pitch a blue and you spend all 3 resources somehow.
yeah. But for most decks, like Oasis just like when it lines up with your tunic, it's pretty good, but when it doesn't, man, is it bad.
No. That you have to line it up with your tunic. That's where you're getting it wrong. It's not that
Mm.
you don't hope it lines up. You have to line it up.
Yeah, but like sometimes you just can't. Like what if you draw 2 Oasis? Like, you're just like pitch an Oasis to play your Oasis and then you're sad because you know you're gonna redraw it later.
No. You pitch Oasis anyways because you need it in your pitch stack, and then you arsenal the other Oasis and wait for the tunic to tick up next turn.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the amount of that's where you have to be, Yuki. Like you need to be in like, how do I get this back in my pitch stack?
Okay. I hope for the card that if I'm playing a long grindy deck, I hope the card I'm trying to pitch deck is not Oasis Respite, but
Oh, it's good though. It's so good. Oasis Respite pitch stack is so good because players don't expect it, and you're like, oh, tunic resource, Oasis Respite, gain 1 life, and they're like, oh, I didn't think about this card
how do
because they
they?
forgot about it. You know,
Oh, I see. I guess if they forget about it, I was gonna say, but they saw you pitch it. But yeah, I guess if they just forgot.
a lot of people would forget. You know, like they
Yeah,
don't
that's
track
fair.
the other player's pitch stack a lot of the times.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so I guess I have one on a similar note. I'll just combine these 2 points actually. I really want outsiders to impact the metagame. I don't want another dynasty where it's just sort of like the same format again. I really hope that this actually like some of the new heroes change up the dynamics in the metagame and we see different heroes doing well. And in particular, I hope that the metagame stays kind of mid-rangey, where you're encouraged to do some blocking, you're encouraged to like have some disruption and do some attacking as well as some defending. And I think that there's like some like I have some hope for this. Like we see like Assassin being a disruption class, Katsu being much more flexible because like all his combo cards block 3, and then you have access to Flick Flack as a result, so he can kind of like pivot to this more mid-range deck. And maybe like the traps coming out for Ranger also makes me kind of hopeful that maybe we'll move that way. I just feel like kind of like we talked about last time, like Flesh and Blood is best when I think it's like somewhere in the middle, and you can do like some combination of both attacking and blocking. And I think like the more kind of mid-rangey and the more that you play a variety of hand sizes, like just the more interesting the games are, at least for me.
That's fair. That's fair. So my next point, I want the Fabled in the set to be playable. I wrote like I didn't want it to be a Blood of Drakai. Blood of Drakai felt really bad. Like that card's a $30 card right now, I think. For a Fable that sees no play, that I don't like. I want at least like a Fable that does something that's like either unique or special or something that we can like really like work towards essentially. So like, Eye of Ophidilia is pretty sick in Kano, and I think that's its only home, and I think it's perfect. Like I want it doesn't have to be as good as Heart of Fendel. That's probably going a little bit too overboard. But like Grandier, what is that card called? The Bravo
Yeah,
specialization?
something Grandeur of Waldheim or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but like the playability of that card, I think is like beautiful. It's like it's exactly where you want it to be. Like cuttable, but maybe good.
Okay.
And Blood of Drakai is just not playable. Like I can't think of any draconic heroes that want it. Like Fi just cannot use that card. Dromai has a really hard time using that card. And the Emperor is the other draconic card, has no use for that card at all.
I mean, I think it's probably at its best in Emperor. I just think that Emperor is not that good, and there's not enough one cost draconic cards.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. So one question I have for you is, how do you feel about? So I agree that like having, I feel like there's just like this awkward tension where we have like if you have like Blood of Drakai where it's like completely unplayable, it feels pretty bad. Or like even Corsham is like a little better, but kind of sad.
I have seen Corsham in some people's decks.
Yeah,
I have never seen Blood of Drakai in some people's decks.
that's fair. It's like a step up,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's still not
it's
great.
Corsham bad, but
But like
you know,
yeah, I feel like there's this like awkward tension between that and then like you said with Hard to Find All and the card just being like becoming a staple in multiple decks, being really powerful. And honestly, I feel like I could do the same thing, especially with Azalea, the way that she is. Like if Sandscour or Great Bow becomes stock, I think that probably going to want Eye of Ophidia in that deck. And I think like as we get more, we saw like C play in Starvo, like I think that's a very strong fable. So I don't know. I'm curious, like, if they should be trying to make the Fabled like exactly the right power level, or if they should just not have mechanically unique Fables and instead do like what they did in Dynasty with the Command and Conquer Fabled, where you just get like some cool full art cold foil reprint rather than rather than create this like $500 Fabled card that you like have to put in your deck for marginal upside.
I like the unique Fableds. They have like they feel a lot more special than like a typical trading card, which is a cool feeling, honestly. Like I play a lot of TCGs, you know that, and like not everyone has access to it, obviously, because of the price point, which is not a good thing for like competitive play, I guess. Like it's hard to like get brand new players to like invest in a Heart of Fendel essentially. But I feel like it's not actually that big of a problem. How do I say it? I think the best way I want to say it would be like the players that are gonna play these TCGs competitively will not care how much a card is. It doesn't matter if, let's say, Command and Conquer. If Command and Conquer became like a $10,000 card, people will still buy it and people will still play it. Like it's just okay. 10,000 might be overboard, but let's say if it was like the dual land level, like 800 a piece, 700 a piece. people will still just buy it and play it. Like it doesn't matter to the competitive players. They just will play the best deck and the best combination. In those formats, there are going to be the slightly less competitive players that's still going to want to play, and they'll have options. Like as long as the cards that are expensive is like either replaceable by like either playing a different deck or playing a card at similar power level. I wouldn't say the same, but like similar. I can't really think of an example, but like
I think I see what you're saying. Like people are gonna tend to like the most competitive players are still gonna play whatever they think gives them the best chance to win, almost regardless of the price. Like there's like probably a certain upper limit, but it's decently
yeah,
high.
there's gonna be some kind of upper limit. But like I'm trying to say, like if cards are unaffordable to some people, it's not that big of a detriment to the game. When every deck is unaffordable for people, that's a detriment to a game. Where every single deck you want to try and play costs $10,000 plus, it's an unaffordable format. But Legacy and Magic, it's the most unaffordable format in Magic. You can still play Burn, which is a $40 deck or $60 deck. Um, I guess if you play Wasteland, it's like $100 more, but it's a $200 deck at most, and it's like fairly competitive. And there are examples like that in every format for a lot of different games where it'd be like the budget best deck, which as long as that exists and that's tier, it doesn't really matter if like let's say Heart of Fendel costs $700. You can still play Oldhim without Heart of Fendel. Like it's still gonna be a good deck. You lose some percentage point, like 2 or 3 percentage points, but that shouldn't be the reason that you don't play that deck for a calling or something like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not sure where I stand on it. Like I feel like I see what you're saying. The mechanically unique cards are really cool and do feel really special. I don't think we're at a place where it's problematic yet. I hope it doesn't create problems, but I also can they reprint Fables? Do we know?
They have a reprint policy. I pretty sure they're not gonna reprint Heart of Fendel as a foil again in English, at least.
Yeah, but like as long as they can reprint it as like a non-foil, I guess there's always like a safety release valve. They just there's also like a certain point where like if that card becomes so expensive, then reprinting could make people unhappy. So they need to manage it carefully. But yeah, I guess we're not at like exactly the tipping point yet, but the cards are getting pretty expensive and starting to be out of reach for some players. So I know that can be a pain
Yeah,
point.
so the only thing that's never gonna be reprinted as a cold foil ever is first edition cold foils and cold foils that's not first edition from Uprising and up.
Right. So the cold foils are the non-reprintable, but the other rarities can be reprinted.
Yes. These cards still can be printed as a cold foil prize card, so like a gold foil essentially.
Right.
Their Flesh and Blood reprint policy just says, yeah, to quote, it just says, when deciding to reprint a card, careful consideration will be made to affect the reprint will have on the secondary card market and the amount of new demand that exists since the card's last printing.
Okay. Fair enough.
Typically, that will mean that if it's going to get reprinted, it's going to be reprinted as a Fabled again. And I don't think that's going to change anything.
Yeah. Okay. So back on track to our outsiders wish list for constructed. One thing I'm really hoping to see is I feel like as much as I like Ranger, I've been getting sometimes a little bit frustrated with Ranger at times, just like as a competitive deck. And I feel like there's like a number of shortcomings that Ranger has, and I don't expect them to fix it all. I think it's like good for classes to have weaknesses, but I wish that they just gave like some tools to address some of these points. So like the real pain points for me on Ranger right now are just like a lack of defensive options between all the two blocks and like no real good blocking equipment outside perch grapplers feels pretty bad. So like a defensive equipment or more three blocks would go a long way. Traps could go a long way. I also feel like they're super vulnerable to disruption just because they have so many moving parts. And I think it could be thematic for Ranger to have a way to deal with on hits or like to soften the effect of on hits. Like, I don't know, like maybe an equipment that if you block with it, there's no on hits for that one attack and it has blade break. Like as a chess piece or something, I think could be pretty interesting. And they just have like a lot of inconsistency with arrows. The quiver like sort of addresses that, but not entirely. But yeah, I'd like to see like some ways to just kind of deal with the inconsistency of the deck and just like always getting disrupted by everything and not really being able to block the disruption just feels really frustrating. I think just like a few tools to combat that could really help Ranger out, and I think that there's like some pretty flavorful options for doing that.
I would vote against it just because if Ranger gets to keep a 6 card hand and then have an equipment that says your disruption piece doesn't work this turn, I don't know how any deck beats it.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's too strong, or like you could have like a resource cost attached to it, like so that they don't keep a 6 card hand, but they don't get you don't get double CNC'd, and like it's not like CNC pummel, you lose like your whole arsenal and like a card in your hand, I don't know, like I just feel like every on hit affects Ranger, and it feels bad.
That's fair. That's super fair.
And also just like I get that Ranger's supposed to be the glass cannon or whatever, because like Rangers are frail and they're not like the Guardian with the big armor, but like Wizard is a deck full of 3 blocks. Yeah, they have lower life total, but they get like all the 3 blocks.
How would you feel if, like, instead of, like, let's say Kano having 30 health, it had like 40 health, but like all of their cards just block for 2? Like, if they didn't even have a single card that blocked for 3.
Kano specifically might be scarier.
I guess so, yeah, because you just have that is just 2 extra turns instead of,
Yeah,
yeah.
he can kind of just like I feel like it just incentivizes Kano to just like burn you even harder and to try and like race you super hard, which sounds kind of spooky, but yeah, maybe. I guess I just feel like Ranger doesn't need to be quite so squishy, and like another way they could go is like I feel like Feign Death is an interesting design space, like where you have like these defensive cards that feel very Ranger-ish. They just need to make it not not terrible.
I feel like that's what traps are gonna be like. They're gonna have D reacts now that aren't the worst.
Yeah, and traps could very well like already do this, but yeah, I'm really hoping that we see like just like a little bit, like again, like not all of it. I think if you get rid of all of these weaknesses, it's like the class is going to be broken, and we don't need that. But just like a few tools to deal with like 1 or 2 of these, I think would go a long way.
You know what would be cool is if the traps were like, instead of like it being like hard locked to the arsenal, which it no longer is. If traps can be played, like if it had like an extra line on text that says like, if this card was played from your arsenal, do one more thing. That'll be pretty cool design space.
Maybe that's Riptide.
Maybe that is Riptide.
Maybe he has like a hero ability that gives you a bonus.
Yeah, and next episode we're gonna be talking about all the heroes.
Yeah, we should have some of the spoilers. There's a possibility we'll delay recording just slightly. I guess we'll have to see how many spoilers are out, like on our normal recording time, but we'll definitely be talking about the spoilers next week, which is super exciting.
What day are we supposed to post the video?
Our video is posted on the 5th.
On the Sunday.
Is that Sunday?
Yeah, March 5th is a Sunday.
Yeah. So Sunday, March 5th, our video will be dropping. It'll be on our YouTube channel. I don't know exactly what that video is going to look like. We might record something if we can get around to it. Although I guess we're getting low on time, so maybe we should do that soon.
Yes, sometime this week, anytime this week, whenever you're free, Yuki.
Okay. Yeah, we have a fun little idea for the spoiler video. I think it'll be hopefully a little bit of a different take on spoilers and fun for everyone to watch. So something to look forward to for you on the 5th.
And worst case scenario, it'll be a spoiler video.
Yeah, if it's just a regular spoiler video and I'm completely lying to you, then we didn't schedule it, or editing was hard, or we got lazy.
Yeah, one of those three things. Anything else you want to say, or do you have another point for constructed?
Nah. Do you?
No, I am completely done. I just want more defensive assassin.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Maybe. Depends how defensive this defensive assassin is. But I agree. I think assassin's really cool, and it's actually, you know what? I think Outsiders is the first set where I am pretty interested in, I think, every hero. I guess I don't know what the new ones do, but like I'm intrigued by them.
Yeah, when they're a blank card with no text on them, everyone's gonna be intrigued by them.
But like what I mean is like I feel like assassin and ranger and ninja, like I like Katsu a lot. I don't really like Fi, but I do like Katsu a lot. So I feel like it's just like a lot of heroes that I really like. Whereas I feel like a lot of the other sets had like, like one or two heroes I was pretty interested in, and then like one or two that I wasn't so excited about. This one I'm just like pretty excited about almost all of them potentially.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign on a set.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that's just like my personal tastes or what, but yeah, I think the classes and the heroes seem really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm only really interested in Azuri having text or not. I don't care about anything else.
Fair enough.
And the moment they're gonna release Azuri, it's not gonna have a defensive text, and I'm gonna be like, I I don't even know what I want from this set
Zuri's
anymore.
gonna be like the Fi of assassin.
Please, no, no,
Your cards with stealth have go again.
no. I don't care. I don't want go again on on bad 3 power
But you can
attacks.
just play all head jabs. It's actually Fi.
No. No, it's not even gonna be Azuri's ability. If it's gonna be something like that, it's gonna be the first stealth card you play will get go again.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
So it's not gonna even be all of them. It's gonna be the one of them, and it's gonna be awkward.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. All right. I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Thanks for listening. As always, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with us on social media. I'm at Yukili Bender on Twitter, and Jay is at UedaJ, also on Twitter. Or you can email us directly at onthebauble@gmail.com. You can also feel free to leave your questions and comments down in the comment section down below on the YouTube channel. And in particular, I'm pretty curious to hear about your Outsiders wish list and what you're hoping to see in Outsiders. Is it the same stuff as Jay and I, or are there other things on there that we didn't mention or think of that you're really hoping to see in the new spoilers coming up in, I guess, a week or a few days by the time you're listening to this potentially?
Yeah. Or if you're listening to it late, it's already out. Maybe we got everything wrong and we're just talking about weird things. I don't know.
Yeah, if you want to roast us about how bad our takes are, you can do that too. All right, until next time, have a good night.
Hey, good night, everyone.
Oh, actually, I do have a. Okay, wait. I do have a sign off.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So this weekend, I kind of went through a little bit of an emotional roller coaster because usually I'm pretty good about this, but on Friday, I guess, I had already requested the time off work to go to PT Baltimore, and I had gotten basically the request goes to the principal at the school that I work at, and then it goes to the HR department. And I had made the request, it got approved by the principal. HR was taking a little while, and I was wanting to book everything. So I had started booking some of my like flights and things like that. And then on Friday afternoon, I received an email that my application was denied and that I wasn't going to be able to go to Baltimore. And I won't go into like all the detail about why, but I was pretty disappointed and pretty upset. Um, but I did end up reaching out to HR and sort of appealing and just, explaining a little bit more about the event and that it was really important and hoping that there was just some way I could get to go. And of course, it was like Friday afternoon, so I don't know.
They don't care. They want to
Yeah,
go
they don't
home.
care. They want to go home. They'll deal with it later. But I was like all weekend just being like, oh man, I'm not going to go to Baltimore. This sucks. And then Monday morning, I actually got good news. I found out that the request got approved. My appeal did work, and I do get to go after all. And yeah, very relieved and a little bit lucky there. Don't. I mean, I feel like this is obvious, but don't book your flight before you get the time off. It's a bad idea. I think I just got like two. I've never been denied at the HR level. I've only been denied by my principal before. So I was like, HR is not going to care, right? And then they're like, oh no, we care. And I'm like, oh no. So yeah. Anyways, don't do that.
Okay, at least you get to go though.
Yeah, at least I gotta go. So that's why it's been like a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. As I was pretty unhappy over the weekend, and then feeling a lot better today after the good news. So yeah, big relief. And excited to be going to Baltimore with like, I have plans to go with a lot of my testing group. We have like an Airbnb plan that we were going to be renting, and it's just going to be a fun event. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone. So I'm glad that I can make it.
It's outsider, so you don't get to start testing for at least another 2 weeks.
No, that's not true. As soon as we get spoilers, I got to start testing because I have the release weekend tournament in Chicago at MinMax Games. So
Oh, but we're not gonna get everything.
yeah, but like we'll get most of it. Like I mean, in the past they did like Fluke and Box and Fab Unsealed, and like some of those people that do box opening videos ended up getting like boxes to open after all the spoilers were done, and we got to see like people kind of piece together all the cards. So I feel like we're gonna know
Almost all of
all
it.
of it or almost all of it, or at least like a big enough chunk to be able to start
Start
like
testing.
yeah, like start trying out the new heroes, start figuring out like what cards are good and not, and then like if there's something major that we missed, then we can slot it in and see how it works.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Should be a lot of fun.
Are you? It must be a pretty exciting week then for you in the coming next couple of days, or I guess 1 week.
Yeah, I'm actually like really really excited for spoiler season because I know I'm gonna get Nia to test with me right away. I feel like I'm always just dragging Nia along, but he's pretty keen about it too. So
That's good. That's good.
but yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it, and that's part of the reason I haven't been playing a ton of Fab. Like I made it out to one armory, but just been taking it pretty easy because I know that you know all this is coming up. So yeah, maybe I'll play. I don't know. Maybe I'll play the RC in Vancouver as well for Magic the Gathering, but standard sounds so bad.
Yeah, honestly, I was disappointed. Last Tuesday, I tried to sign up for the Pokemon regionals again,
Hmm.
and they had like a window where at 6 p.m. on Thursday, they released the like 7 more spots for the TCG, like Pokemon TCG registration. And so I was at my computer at 6 o'clock, and I clicked through all the things that I needed to click through, and at 6 o'clock and 30 seconds, I clicked register, and it says this registration is full.
I guess you were 30 seconds too slow.
So, well, I was at the computer like starting the process at the exact moment, so it was probably like 5 seconds too slow.
You didn't get a robot to do it for you, so you were too slow.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking it is too. So next Thursday there should be more openings hopefully, and yeah, I'm gonna try and get into this Pokemon tournament. But if not, I'll probably join you at the RC.
Yeah, I haven't decided if I think I'm gonna go no matter what, just to hang out with people and like grind side events. I'm not sure if I'm actually gonna play the real
The
event.
last chance
Yeah, like
qualifiers.
if I want to try and last chance qualifier in on the Friday and then play the event. I have like no test. I know nothing about standard. I haven't tested it at all. But I mean, I have
It's
a
a
bunch of wild
it's a mid
cards.
range
It's a
format.
it's a mid range format.
Yeah, it's a mid range format.
Yeah, I heard there's like mono white mid range. That deck looks kind of sweet.
Oh, I can play Grixis mid range.
It's true, but that deck's
Yeah, it sounds like a
expensive.
great deck. It's only like $400.
I don't want to spend $400 on Magic cards.
I think the mono white deck is like same price because you have to play Elishnorn, which is like $45 each.
Maybe I'll just play mono blue aggro or something. I'm pretty sure that deck is dirt cheap.
At that point, you should just play. You should play side events.
Yeah, maybe that's a better idea. I can just go draft. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, drafting Phyrexia all will be one's pretty fun.
Yeah, the format does seem sweet. I've drafted it all of one times.
I got the diamond actually already.
Oh, so you like the format?
It's the format's uh y- yeah, like it's it's not my favorite. It's nowhere close to my favorite, but it is mindless, which is something I like about the format. Where I'm just like during the draft portion, I'm like click white card, click white card, click white card, click white card, and then I go turn 4, swing with all. Is my opponent dead? No. Ah, I lose the game.
That's fair. Yeah, it seems like you want to
So
play all the cheap cards.
yeah, if you don't have a 2-drop on turn 2, you probably lose. If you have a 1-drop on turn 1, ooh, you're doing real well for yourself.
Yeah. If you get to play something on turn 1, 2, and 3, real good.
Yeah, can't lose. Unless your opponent also does the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think this is good enough for the sign off.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Hey, good night.